Well, I consider it a privilege to be on Edge of Wonder, and look forward to seeing what you guys want to do. I do spy improv. Ask me anything.
Awesome.
Great. Do you want to read the bio a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So Robert David Steele is a former Marine Corps infantry officer, CIA spy, and second-ranking civilian in Marine Corps intelligence, responsible for creating the Marine Corps intelligence activity. Robert is the CEO of Earth Intelligence Network and is the chief counsel for the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into Human Trafficking and Child Sex Abuse, which is some amazing credentials there, Robert. We've seen some of your work.
Good job. There's no better way of understanding the beast than serving in the belly of the beast. I left CIA when the Marine Corps invited me to come create the Marine Corps Intelligence Center. At the same time, I pissed off the clandestine service by refusing a job on covert action staff, which is, I signed up to steal the truth from my country, not to tell lies for my country or assassinate people or torture people or do all the other silly shit that covert action staff does. I've reviewed several books recently. I'm starting to realize that CIA has been conducting illegal activities within the United States of America since at least the 1960s, if not before, to include creating a completely degenerate music industry with mind control and sex and drugs and rock and roll and the whole bit. What really changed my life was being the second-ranking civilian in Marine Corps intelligence and being responsible for providing decision support to the Commandant of the Marine Corps and all of our Marine Corps generals and every combatant commander, is I found out spies don't know shit. They basically are obsessed on a few things like the Soviet Union and China and Korea and laughably Cuba, and they don't know anything about Burundi or Haiti or Somalia. So I created the open source intelligence discipline and scared the living out of CIA. They were very, very frightened by the idea that an open source agency might put them out of business. So We've had a fight for the last 40 years. And if President Trump wins re-election and if Mike Flynn comes back into government, then I'm hoping there will be an open source agency. And the beauty of open source intelligence is you can share it with the public. You can share it with Congress, the press, and foreign allies, which means you can make evidence-based decisions in the public interest and no secrets. I testified to the Secrecy Commission run by Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, and the point that I made is that secrecy in Washington is not about protecting secrets. It's about protecting the right to lie to Congress.
Right.
And so Ed Snowden was literally a CIA operation intended to give Obama an opportunity to go to Congress and say, we need to close down these nasty. But that didn't work out the way they were planning. And in fact, Admiral Rogers, as head of the NSA, may end up being one of the greatest Americans in modern history because he went to Trump and told him exactly what was happening. And that was the beginning of the Trump revolution.
I see.
Cartoon, you guys could even throw it up. But in that cartoon, Bill Binney is growling about how, we're spying on all these Americans. Binney's a great American. And then in the second half of the cartoon below it, Trump is smiling at Binney and says, yeah, but we also got all the dirt on the plutocrats. Okay. And that's the heart of the matter. Binney and I have been saying for months that we've got it all, but NSA only processes 1% of it. Look, Snowden was a security guard with a high school education at NSA. He was then by CIA as a so-called technical expert in Geneva. Then he was sheep-dipped again into Booz Allen, which is the alternative CIA, where Mike McConnell, Keith Hall, and Joan Dempsey, among other infamous names, work. And then he was put into Hawaii, where somebody handed him, allegedly, 1.8 million documents. I think it was closer to 100,000. And then he was set up with Greenwald and these other guys in Hong Kong. And then he flees to Russia, and mysteriously the State Department, which is not completely stupid, cancels his passport, so he's forced to stay in Russia. This is a WrestleMania drama.
Yeah,
it really is.
Yeah.
Okay.
It really is.
Now, bottom line here is the deal that I'm told that Snowden has with the president. Not only is he giving up all of the money that he earned, but he is going to testify against Obama and Brennan and whoever at Booz Allen was his handler. Now, Assange has a similar deal on the table where Assange will testify that Seth Rich handed a flash drive to Admiral Craig Murray, who handed it to Assange. No Russians involved. Now, I want to bring up one third name, John Kiriakou. John Kiriakou is a CIA officer, a very fine CIA officer, who was framed by the FBI exactly the same way Mike Flynn was framed. And so many others have been framed by the FBI over time. So I've called for the pardon of Kiriakou as well as Snowden and Assange. Kiriakou allows the president to denounce the FBI and the CIA for framing loyal, patriotic Americans. Then I've also asked for the president to pardon the Black Panthers in prison and the Native American leaders like Pelletier. That creates a holistic healing scenario going into the election.
I see.
You know, the story you're telling about Snowden is not very known, that he's actually playing ball for the good guys. So how is it? I mean, how did you come by this information?
Who's playing ball for the good guys?
Well, you're saying Snowden could testify against Snowden.
Look, I've met Snowden's parents. Okay, I mean, they have top secret clearances. They're part of the system. Snowden is a pawn in a CIA war against NSA that failed. Gotcha. Because of Admiral Rogers, Trump understands who Snowden is and what he can offer. And the deal with Snowden is you can rot to death in Russia, or you can come home and testify against the assholes that tried to set you up.
I see.
I think the decision is clear then, isn't it? Yeah.
And that's what I was trying to say earlier.
I mean, CIA has some wonderful people, and I never tire of saying that everybody at CIA, 90% of everybody is good people trapped in a bad system.
Yeah,
it was on the surface a great scenario. Evil, dark NSA spying on every American, blah, blah, blah. Now, I got Bill Binney on Michelle Holliday to say that with 10 people in 30 days, he could process 100% of NSA's data instead of 1%, and he could identify with certainty every single traitor, every single elite pedophile, and every single white-collar criminal in the United States of America. Guess what? 2 weeks ago, Bill Binney disappeared.
No way.
Into the maws of empire.
So you haven't heard from Bill in 2 weeks now?
I think Bill is serving the president with distinction.
Wow.
Okay. At first, I was a little worried when you said he disappeared. I was like,
I was worried too. I was very worried, to the point that I sent General Flynn a frantic note asking him to call Bill. But now my sense is that Bill is basically in God's hands on earth doing God's work.
That's amazing. That's really.
It is amazing, because let me tell you something. There isn't a person on this planet that can survive Bill Binney inside of NSA's database, and that includes Fauci and Bill Gates.
Yeah, I mean,
we were curious to know, I'm sure you've heard the news about Hunter Biden, that the Senate report linked him to, how he sent money to or aided in human trafficking. And we were wondering if you could give us your perspective on that.
He's a drug-sucking piece of shit that was taking money on behalf of his father.
Mm-hmm. That does it. So, I mean, why?
Did I miss anything?
No. Why is this guy not getting? I mean,
yeah,
we know the answer, but why is this guy not getting nailed?
Well, first off, I think the president has an exquisite sense of timing. And I have to tell you, my big reveal, and let me give a shout out to Matt Taibbi, because Taibbi's written some brilliant books, including Griftopia, The Divide, and more recently, Hate, Inc. And in Hate, Inc., Taibbi reveals that Donald Trump is essentially running a WrestleMania drama going up to Election Day. And the conclusion that I have come to is that, first off, I think Joe Biden's going to drop out of the race at some point in the near future. Yes. I have, you remember the source Deep Throat?
Yes.
I have a source in the Democratic National Committee, which I call Deep Anus. Deep Anus told me 2 months ago that Biden was going to drop out by the 16th of September, which was allegedly the last state in which they could change the names on all of the ballots. Now, Biden has not dropped out. There's supposedly a debate tonight, but both Biden and Kamala Harris referred to the Harris administration.
Yes.
A week ago.
Yeah.
So I went back to Deep Anus, who's in an undisclosed location, and I said, well, what happened here? And he said, they're having an argument The Republican Rhino Never Trumper wants to be president. And half of the DNC thinks it will be a better ticket with a white guy as president and Harris as vice president. And half of the DNC thinks the optics are bad. If Biden drops out, they have to elevate Harris and bring the white guy in as the token white boy under Harris. And so there's a huge argument going on in the DNC. I wrote a letter to Comey saying, hey, you should be indicting Hillary Clinton for treason, pedophilia, electoral fraud, and charity fraud. Okay? Now, knowing what I know, and knowing what I know about the Weiner laptop, which Sidney Powell has spoken about, and one New York detective has spoken to me about, and knowing what I know about what NSA has on Clinton. By the way, Benny's the one who just announced that after Mueller wiped all the phones clean when they turned them in, Benny came up on Twitter and told Dennis Nunes, hey, just go into Star Winds. We've got all of Mueller's texts. Doesn't matter if he wiped out the phones, okay? I think that she and Pelosi and Schumer and all of those people have probably already done signed confessions and video confessions, and this is all a drama that's playing out. There is no way they can beat the combination of Trump and NSA data.
Okay, I've got a very specialized question for you. So we're just talking about Hillary Clinton. We kind of brought up the Clinton Foundation a little bit. And
speaking of which, the Twitter Foundation is trending on Twitter.
The Clinton Foundation, yeah. The Clinton Foundation was trending on Twitter. Jay is actually protecting the Clinton Foundation so that it doesn't all get exposed at once, right? If you look at like True Pundit's work, for instance, like that, that's Thomas Paine. I'm sure you're aware of his work with the FBI. What's your perspective on the Clinton Foundation? Is the DOJ actually protecting them?
Let's start with the fact that Bill Barr was Bill Clinton's handler for Bill Casey. CIA created the Clinton crime family.
Right.
CIA created Arkansas as a landing zone for children and drugs and guns and gold and dirty cash. So Bill Barr knows the Clintons intimately.
Well,
interesting.
Now,
almost as intimately as Deep Anus might know.
Well, or either that or Deep Anus is known intimately by Bill Clinton. We could explore all these permutations.
Let's not explore. Let's not explore.
I'll tell you, my bottom line is, first off, it's very clear that the Clinton Foundation is about as dirty as the Ford Foundation, the Gates Foundation, the Soros Foundation. They're all dirty. Now, Hillary Clinton sold Somalia and Yemen to Syria. She sold Libya to the French. She sold Uranium One to the Russians. My bottom line is, I think the president has cut deals with all of these people. President Trump is a deal maker. And the easiest way to get to a peaceful, lawful election on time and then move on is to cut deals with these people. So I'm not going to second guess the president. I will tell you with absolute certainty that we have enough to put Hillary Clinton into death row.
I mean, that makes sense.
All your game chats, they have Proton Mail, they have Signal, they've got it all. And oh, by the way, this is kind of a cool reveal. John Brennan coordinated the Russian witch hunt against the president on what's called the green phone. These are the CIA encrypted green phones. And these green phones, he used these green phones to talk to MI6 and to Gina Haspel, who was John Brennan's bitch in London as chief of station. Okay? NSA has all of CIA's encrypted calls in the clear.
Wow. So that's why they're crapping their pants, really.
They know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everything. So now, Portland and Seattle and New York, I think the president allowed those to play out to show what happens in a democratically run city that has been bought and paid for by George Soros. All right? Now, the president also did a pilot project in Portland. Let me make another point first. All the black leaders, all the authentic black leaders in America have absolutely rejected these protests, which are basically run by paramilitary provocateurs with kits for putting cars on fire. You notice there's always at least one car on fire for the media picture. You've got the illegal aliens from Somalia and Haiti who are paid to participate. And then you've got the dumbass white kids that were social promoted through school and don't know shit from Shinola. However, Trump ran a pilot project in Portland. He did not send in the troops. He sent in undercover officers in unmarked cars who videotaped people committing felonies and then selectively took them off the street when they weren't looking. This scared the shit out of these protesters. The rules of engagement have changed. We're now in a state of war. This is domestic terrorism. This is no longer about due process where George Soros can pay for all the lawyers, just like Bloomberg probably just committed a major felony by paying the fines of all of the felons, you know, as a quid pro quo for their voting Democratic. Okay, so we're now at a point where everybody who is a domestic terrorist can be considered an enemy of the state. And that means you can treat them as an enemy combatant under the military tribunal rules, which Lindsey Graham was so careful to articulate when Justice Kavanaugh was being interviewed. The rules have changed.